Mark, we keep on hearing how bad the drug problem is down here, and that the youth are getting into it more and more by the day. Is it the case? You guys should know because you're running the centre. How bad is it?
I think, Johanna, at the centre here, I think a lot of the residents that enter inpatient treatment here at the South Coast Recovery Centre are predominantly from Johannesburg, from Durban, from Pretoria. Whilst we've had a lot of people that have come through our doors for an evaluation or some sort of concern, behavioural concern that's happening, from a treatment perspective, we wouldn't really encourage an individual to come into treatment here locally, because it's literally just a jump over the fence into their place of resource. The unfortunate thing with drug abuse in school these days and addiction in schools these days is that facilities have to be particularly prepared to accept minors under the age of 18, which one was able to achieve in the olden days by signing what they call a Form 4, which is effectively where the parents used to sign their parental rights over into the care of a facility for a period of time that no longer exists. There are very, very limited resources and treatment centres available in South Africa to cater for this kind of ever-escalating issue. I think one thing that we are starting to see and understand more and more is that it appears that there is a lot of alcoholism and a lot of addiction within the family system. I feel down here, particularly in the South Coast, it appears that the youth have far too much money. And when you actually start probing and looking a little bit deeper, we find that it's actually the parents or the systems that are actually involved in addiction or alcoholism themselves, and of course are handing over quite a lot of money in order to keep the kids away from the using space. So very, very much I think the problem is ever increasing. I think it's escalating dramatically. And from a treatment perspective, there's a complete lack of kind of facilities available out there in order to deal with the ever increasing problem.
You mentioned the source. How easy is it to get drugs down here? How long does it take if a teenager or whoever wants to abuse a drug or wants to buy? How quickly can they get hold of it?
Oh, look, I think I've been pretty much out the game for about 12, 13 years. What I can say to you is, if that one is looking for it and one wants to get it, it's pretty an easy thing to obtain. Going into kind of the cultural aspects with Mark Lewis at a later stage during this interview, I'm sure we'll be able to kind of explain the like-mindedness and be able to kind of get into the whole cultural place of that in terms of how innocently an individual or child can actually start this kind of thing and eventually kind of turns on them and ends up pretty much creating a chaotic kind of situation.
But now, how does one solve this? I mean, is the problem solvable? What do you guys do? Do you reprogram? What do you do to get somebody over this?
The latest statistics tell us that around any addicted person or around addiction, about 69, 70 people are directly impacted by addiction itself.
By one person.
By one person. If I have a look at the people that are currently in treatment at the moment, you're looking at about 570 years of addiction experience, and with opportunity cost and other miscellaneous costs over a 15, 20-year kind of usage period, you're looking at in excess of about 200 million rand that have been spent by those individuals over their period of time. So really what you're looking at is a massive industry. Of course, that industry is not only kind of liquid cash for substances, it also becomes, pretty much a computer for drugs, stolen goods for drugs, diamonds for drugs, firearms for drugs. It just becomes a really massive kind of, massive industry.
Am I correct in assuming that you guys would rather change the habits of the user instead of trying to eliminate the pushers and the drug suppliers?
Very much. We don't believe that eliminating this problem in this country, and certainly down here at the South Coast, is about eliminating the drug dealer or the drug lord. Bearing in mind that it pretty much works in a tier situation. So if the one gets arrested, the next one will slip into place. So you're really at a loss trying to fight it that way. So we obviously believe that education is an absolutely fundamental thing at a school level. We tried very, very hard and trying to push it, and I think that they have implemented it in some schools down here on the South Coast, the importance of kind of drug testing regimes. which I think kind of is against an individual's constitutional right. So there's a lot of schools at the moment that are getting the parents to kind of sign into that, which then authorises the school to implement kind of testing for their children.
Does it help? Does it work?
I think what it does, Johannes, is I think it gets you to understand what is and what isn't. Is my child using substances or isn't? I know. In a lot of people's homes, testing is really not about an issue of trust in the home, because of the extent of the problem these days and because of the susceptibility to it these days. Is that testing in the home is pretty much a standard protocol that happens in the home from now on. I think one needs to appreciate that also. The usage of substances is really symptomatic of something. If one's got to take the drug use and the drug abuse or the drug dependency out the way, fundamentally what you're left is with a default setting or a behavioural disorder, which I know in some cases usually the concerns start happening around about standard 3. I think so often parents can kind of confuse, is this a stage that my child is just kind of going through? Or is this kind of really addiction-related kind of behaviour?
What are the signs? What does it want?
I think early signs would be probably little things. For example, being quite frugal with the truth, being kind of highly manipulative, kind of shirking responsibility. I think in my own personal life in terms of how much stationery I used to lose and how many school clothes that I used to do and sporting equipment that I used to lose, and then how I used to kind of steal other people's stuff in order to try and replace that, forging of reports, a steady decline in academic performance, banking school, that type of thing. And obviously just the common kind of physical symptoms, which is red eyes, loss in weight, short and long-term memory loss, strain and distance in interpersonal relationships.
But is it true that sometimes parents just don't want to believe that their children can be involved?
Yeah, I think often parents want to turn a blind eye to it because I think they're frankly either horrified of it or whether they don't want to believe their child's engaging in something like this.
What would your advice to them be?
My advice very, very much is ignorance kills. For me, one needs to kind of implement drug testing within the home environment, implement that as a standard protocol that happens in the home from now on. I think education in school is necessary, not so much from the perspective of what do drugs look like, but really, look at coming to kind of source individuals from various treatment facilities and really start talking about the sharp edge of consequence related to addiction. And here, what happens to an individual going 15, 20 years down into a self-deprivating pattern. I think that's important.
Thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you, sir.